Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. We always try to make this English learning journey we're on together more interesting. And
More inclusive, too, of course.
yeah, exactly. And that brings us to today's topic, spectrum stories. It's this really cool collection of short stories, specifically designed for, well, English language learners like you. And they all center around LGBTQ plus themes and characters.
And it's all part of this bigger project called the Queer Triptych. And I think what's really neat about it is it brings together language learning and, representation. So you get these diverse stories that are interesting and easy to understand. And they're also, super relevant to you as students, especially in a multicultural place like Strasbourg.
Okay, so we've got 6 stories in total to talk about today. And the cool thing is they cover a range of levels from A2 to C1. So no matter where you are on your English language journey, there's a story here for you. We've got The Baker's Heart, A Small Living Room, Finding Emma.
The Last Dance at Tracks.
Yeah, The Last Dance at Tracks, The Vanishing Glyphs, and Whispers from the Grave. What a mix.
It really is. And each story gives you a different perspective on the LGBTQ plus experience. So you get to practice your English and also learn more about different identities and, just different ways of seeing the world.
Right. Okay, so let's start with The Baker's Heart. This one's for you B2 learners out there. And kind of takes you on this fun little trip through a fairy tale world.
There's a twist.
Yeah, exactly. It's not your typical, prince searching for a princess kind of thing. In this one, we have Prince Aiden, and he's looking for a heart as pure as gold.
And he's not limiting himself to just, princesses. He's open to anyone.
I like that. So that's where we meet Luca, our Dacre, and he's the main character in this story.
And he's not your typical knight in shining armor, is he?
Definitely not.
He's kind, caring, and he expresses himself through baking. It's really heartwarming. And I think it's a clever way to challenge those traditional fairy tale ideas, and to explore what it really means to be a hero.
For sure. And the way they describe his baking, all those yummy smells. That's
the fragrance, they call it.
Yeah, the fragrance. It's almost like you can smell it just reading the story.
That's the power of descriptive language. It really helps you connect with the story on a deeper level. And it makes those new vocabulary words like quaint to describe the village, fragrance for those amazing smells, and legality, which talks about tradition and the things we pass down. It makes them all stick in your mind.
Totally. And The Baker's Heart actually comes with a glossary, which is super helpful. It explains all those key terms, just to make it a little bit easier to follow along. Now, for those of you at the A2B1 level, there's A Small Living Room. And this one is really relatable, I think. It's about Jake, this teenager who's trying to figure out how to come out to his mom.
Yeah, it's a really honest story. It doesn't shy away from those tough emotions that come with coming out, The fear, the hope, the need to be accepted for who you are. It's a really valuable story, I think, for learning conversational English, too, because it uses language that you might hear every day.
Yeah. You really feel like you're in the room with Jake.
Yeah.
Especially when they describe the scent of chamomile tea filling the room.
Right. And that chamomile tea, that's not just a random detail. It's the author's way of creating a specific mood, It's about warmth and comfort and closeness, and that just adds so much to the story.
Yeah, definitely. And for those of you who are just starting out, at the A2 level, we've got Finding Emma. This one is a sweet story about a young woman figuring out who she is and finding love in a new city.
I think it's perfect for practicing your basic English grammar and vocabulary because it uses simple language and everyday situations, but it explores these big themes of self-discovery and belonging. And being in a new place like Strasbourg, I think you might find yourself relating to Emma's story a lot.
I think so, too. We all want to belong, to be accepted, no matter where we are in life. And this story really captures that feeling.
And that's what's so great about stories, right? They can help us connect with each other, even if we come from different backgrounds or speak different languages. There's always that common human experience that we can all relate to. Okay, now if you're looking for something a little more challenging, and let's be real, who doesn't love a good mystery, you should definitely check out The Last Dance at Tracks. This one's perfect for those B2C1 learners. It'll really make you use those vocabulary skills, and it's got this great suspenseful vibe.
Yeah, it's a real page-turner. This one takes us to a gay bar on Halloween night. It's closing down. And a group of friends, they all have this shared history together. They come together for one last, hurrah.
Yeah.
But then amidst all the nostalgia and partying, this dark secret from their past comes back to haunt them. And it turns the whole night into a whodunit.
Yeah, but it's more than just a spooky mystery. The story also explores themes of friendship and loss, and the idea of chosen family. And the vocabulary is fantastic. You'll come across words like blackmail and alibi and confession.
Ooh, I love those words.
Right, words that add so much intrigue to the plot, but they're also really useful words to know in everyday English.
It's a great example of how learning new vocabulary can actually be fun. When it's woven into a story like this, it just makes sense. You pick it up naturally.
For sure. You get so absorbed in the world of the story that the learning just happens organically. So speaking of getting absorbed in a world, let's switch gears and talk about the vanishing glyphs. This one's for you B1 learners, and it's all about science fantasy. It follows these two characters, Kieran and Marcus, who are on this, desperate quest to save their world, which is, well, dying.
Oh, wow. This one sounds intense.
It is, and it's this really cool blend of technology and ancient mysteries with a little bit of romance thrown in. Imagine ancient codes, futuristic gadgets, and a love story all happening against the backdrop of a, crumbling civilization.
Wow, what an adventure. So is the language difficult?
It's perfect for lower intermediate learners. Challenging enough to expand your vocabulary, but not so hard that you get lost. And it introduces you to all these cool scientific and fantasy words like glyphs, encryption, and conduit.
Ooh, I love those words. It's like learning a secret language.
Exactly. And finally, we have Whispers from the Grave. Now, the title might sound a bit spooky, but trust me, this one's actually really heartwarming. It's a B2 story, and, well, it takes place on Halloween night.
Of course. So what's this one about?
Well, our main character is a 12-year-old boy named Oliver, and he's looking for some comfort and guidance, but he finds it in a very unexpected place. In a cemetery, of all places. He ends up confiding in the ghost of Henry Locke.
Wow, that's an interesting twist. A ghost in a cemetery. It's like a classic Halloween story.
Exactly. It's about finding support in the most unexpected places, embracing who you are, and realizing that sometimes the people who have, passed on can still offer us guidance and support.
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah, it's really heartwarming. And the vocabulary in this story is just so beautiful and moving. Words like comforting and journey, they really capture Oliver's emotions, and it's a great example of how you can use English to express your feelings in a very deep and meaningful way.
It sounds like this collection is full of little lessons on how to use English in different ways. Not just a basic communication, but for, expressing your emotions, creating vivid images with words, and understanding those subtle cultural things that are built into the language.
You got it. And let's not forget, each of these stories gives us a glimpse into the LGBTQ plus experience, which I think is really important. It's not just about learning English, it's about understanding the world around us better, and that includes the diverse community we live in, especially here in Strasbourg, which is so multicultural.
I think that's such a valuable point. These stories can help us connect with the LGBTQ plus community in a meaningful way, understand their experiences, and celebrate diversity. And that's especially relevant in Strasbourg, where you have so many different cultures and perspectives coming together.
Absolutely. And really, it comes back to that idea that stories can teach us so much about ourselves and the world around us. No matter what language we speak or where we come from, we can all connect with the human experiences that are shared in these stories.
Now, before we wrap up our discussion on spectrum stories, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. How do you think exploring stories from different cultures and perspectives can help us learn a language better?
That's a great question. I mean, language isn't just, grammar rules and vocabulary. It's so much more than that. It reflects a culture's, history, values, everything.
Right, it's like a window into a whole different way of life.
Exactly. And when you immerse yourself in stories from different backgrounds, you're not just learning new words, you're learning new ways of thinking, new ways of expressing yourself. It really opens up your mind.
And especially here in Strasbourg, you're surrounded by so many different cultures. So these stories can really help you connect with people on a deeper level, understand their experiences, and appreciate the richness of all these different perspectives.
Absolutely. Each story is like a little conversation, inviting you in to learn and grow. So any practical tips for our listeners on how to get the most out of these stories, especially for language learning?
That's a good question.
Well, first of all, don't be scared of those unfamiliar words. Take advantage of the glossary, look things up in a dictionary, use those online resources. It's all part of the learning process.
Yeah, for sure. And don't just passively read. Make notes, highlight things that stand out to you, and then try to use those new words in your own writing or even conversations with your classmates. Make it active.
Yes. And reading aloud can be super helpful too. It helps with your pronunciation and fluency, and you start to pick up on the natural rhythm and intonation of English, which can be tricky sometimes.
Right. Plus, it's kind of fun to act out the characters and, bring those stories to life with your voice.
Exactly. But most importantly, don't forget to enjoy yourself. These stories are meant to be fun and thought-provoking, so don't get too caught up in the technical stuff. Just let yourself get swept away by the story. Let the language flow.
I love that. So, to all our listeners out there, especially you guys at the University of Strasbourg, definitely check out Spectrum Stories on the Queer Triptych website. It's an amazing resource, full of inclusive stories just waiting to be discovered.
Yeah, it's a real gem. And remember, learning a language is a journey, not a race. So be patient with yourself, celebrate your progress, and never stop exploring.
Beautifully said. That's all the time we have for today's deep dive. We hope we've inspired you to keep learning, keep exploring, and keep those conversations going. See you next time.
We hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the new Spectrum Stories over at the Queer Triptych. Check them out today at www.queertriptych.weebly.com. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.